in this book?
Well, people sometimes ask me and say, how long did it take to write the book? And I have two answers to that. One is 2 years, and the other is 22 years. So the book is a product of 22 years of thinking about these issues and experience. But the actual writing took 2 years, where I was doing a fair amount of research and then writing. And, I'd left the bank by that stage, so I had a few other commitments, and I could sit down and think carefully and write it. And I enjoyed that process. You need long stretches of peace and quiet to be able to write.
Was there something cathartic about writing about these very difficult times?
No, I don't think it was cathartic. I think it was much more that it was an opportunity to clarify my own thinking and to think through some new ideas. In that sense, it was exciting to be able to write about it, because I think there were some novel features of the proposals I make in the book, but also the analysis which lies behind it. And I wanted to explain to non-economists how money and banking worked. That's the essence of the book, which is, if you're not an economist, that's a good thing, because your mind is not cluttered up with all sorts of baggage from the traditional way we thought about it. Let's come to this as an intelligent person thinking about money and banking. What is the alchemy in the current system we have? That is, money in itself has no intrinsic value, whether it's pieces of paper we use in the form of banknotes or whether it's electronic money. There's no fundamental intrinsic value to it. Its value depends on the trust we place in the fact that other people will accept it, and we trust the people who issue the banknotes or the electronic money. And the same with banks. We put money into a bank in the belief that whenever we want it, we can get it back. But if we all try to do that at the same time, the bank can't repay us. So there's an element of make-believe about all this. And I wanted to clarify all that and to work out how we can build a solid platform for ensuring that a system that has a degree of alchemy in it can actually function without people worrying that one day it might collapse.
So on that note, where are we today in 2016?
Well, a long way to go, I think. There are two problems we face. One is the world economy is not recovering properly, and I describe that at some length in the book. And I don't think it's going to be easy for any one country to get out of this on its own. And certainly the idea that central banks, by printing more money, will be able to solve the problem, I think, is a mistake. The second problem is that the banking system is safer, particularly in Britain and the United States, but it's not safe in the euro area or in other parts of the world. And in the long run, we haven't really done enough to ensure that even our own banking system is going to be safe in the long run. It's still exposed to the risk that there could be, as there was in 2008, a run on the banking system where people lose confidence and decide, well, look, I don't know how solid this bank is, but I won't take the risk. I'll take the money out. And if everyone tries to do that, then the banking system will collapse.
And in just over a month's time, everyone in Britain's going to have quite a big decision to make about where we stand with Europe. What advice would you give to someone still making up their mind?
Well, try to find, if you can, some coherent arguments on one side or the other. And I think it's been a depressingly negative debate. But the only piece of advice I would give to people is to make up their own mind. This is a debate where, unusually, we are deciding on a very big issue for Britain, whether we remain members of the European Union or not. And each person has a vote, and they really have a responsibility to themselves to make up their own mind on this and then to cast their vote. Don't decide on the basis of what other people tell you to do. Go away and make up your own mind.
So on to Mervyn the reader now. In the introduction to this book, you quote Dickens, you quote T.S. Eliot. Do you have any favourite authors that you read from a fiction perspective?
No, I don't think there's any one set of authors. I try to always have two books on the go, as it were, one fiction, one non-fiction. But there are obviously favourites. You can go back to Dickens. But, new fiction. Also, we used to have at home a little book club with friends where we called it Not the Booker Prize, where we, instead of looking at the new books for that year, we would say, well, let's take the last 50 years, and then the previous 50 years, and then the 19th century, and read the books that we and our friends thought were interesting books that maybe others had not read. From that point of view, I think it's fairly eclectic.
So give me an example of one of the things you read as part of the book club.
The first year we started it, where our remit was fiction over the period 1950 to 2000, The Reader by Bernard Schlink was a book that I wasn't aware of before. It hadn't been out very long. And we all found this an extraordinarily moving book, and one which, unusually, having been written initially in German, was translated into